We're here today to talk about real estate.
Hello and welcome back to the Real Estate Unlimited podcast. My name is Sierra Steinmetz.
Brian Schuby.
I'm Carrie Steele.
I'm Bill Jones.
And we're the Jones home team.
And this is episode 44, believe it or not. Quite a few different things here. Carrie, you're getting into realtor versus just a licensed real estate agent, right?
Yeah.
Why would you ever want to be that? But we'll come back to that. Sierra, you had some fun stuff. What was the one? It was repurposing. I lost my note
3D
here.
printing and recycled materials.
Recycled
for home
material.
building.
All right. So I need to start recycling. That's what
Yeah,
you're saying
maybe.
then maybe then too. Shuby's got price reductions. What's that looking like across the country? Is that going to affect you? And then I had a couple different things here. We'll see what we get into. But the one of my favorite, I guess, punching bag, going back to Compass and, that private listing thing. I don't know why we keep picking on them. They're the ones that are.
We're going to get a cease and desist.
I know, probably. Well, all the podcast stuff I listen to, like these guys are just going on and on about it.
About to get a little controversial too.
Yeah, right. So, and the big part of that, you can wrap it into like a for sale by owner. So the hook I had here is selling your home privately, putting your house on clearance. No coupons needed. I've got the receipts. So we'll see if we can get into some of this. And that kind of plays into selling your house by yourself versus like doing a private listing. We'll go into that. And then last week, Shub, you weren't here. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you.
Glad you could join us. Appreciate you. We talked about what did we talk about here? I wanted to bring it back then to the agents. Oh, teams versus individual agents.
Oh, yeah.
How that affected the consumer. And into this week, if we have time, we'll roll it into like the real estate world, what that does for agents. But we'll probably run out of time. So, Carrie, let's get into it.
We're all a little
Realtor,
chatty today, aren't we?
Yeah, realtor versus...
So this is controversial because, the National Association of Realtors and their whole lawsuit thing back in August. So you don't really want to associate with, that lawsuit. But at the same time, what is the benefit of being a realtor versus being just a sales agent? So you can probably pick them out of a crowd just based on how they handle situations.
Sure.
You've worked with a licensed agent on one side, and we all say we're licensed agents because we are, but then you've worked with realtors and you can totally tell the difference.
I can definitely tell most of the time.
I would say I feel like I should say I feel like, but I know the difference between just being an agent and being a realtor. Realtors, they are held to a much higher standard ethically and morally because they belong to National Association of Realtors or us, Ohio Association of Realtors as well. And it's like what sets them apart. So you could go into quick details about what sets realtors as different from licensed agents, but realtors are held to a higher standard because they follow that code of ethics. And so ongoing training, in order to become a licensed sales agent, everybody has to go through the same schooling, whether it's the state of Ohio or anywhere across the nation. Okay. You have to go through that.
Yeah.
Get
the bar's
schooling.
The same to get licensed.
That's right. Yeah. And it's not easy. I'll be the first to say it. It's not easy to get licensed. There's fees associated with it.
I don't know. Some of the agents you see running around, it might be too easy.
I know. And I wonder too, because I know how hard I studied and how much time I put into it. And I just wonder how some people got where they got. But regardless, realtors, so they have a commitment to ethical practices and through the National Association of Realtors. And then we also have to do ongoing continued education. And some people take that very seriously and they want to learn and they want to, broaden their skills and get additional certifications and find what what is their specialty? What are they good at?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part that all those different designations you can get through NAR and different groups. So,
really trying to better yourself, trying to learn, trying to educate yourself.
Not just doing a minimum standard to get by. Yeah, they're really trying to learn something.
And you can. I mean, you could click. I think most professions have some sort of continued education, and it's the difference between, okay, you have to be in front of the computer from this time to this time. Now, whether you have a mouse that's moving for you or click.
All the work at home people have the mouse that jiggles
COVID,
or whatever.
Or you're actually trying to retain that information. So when you take the test, you're like, man, I missed that. I better write that down. That could come up in my career.
Sure.
So Realtor works with National Association of Realtors, which I said like 50 times. They have the membership, which keeps them, adhering to the Realtor Code of Ethics. And I think that's the big thing is, trying to be morally and ethically, walking the lines. And two, I feel like realtors, if they're in a moral or ethical dilemma, they have the knowledge to know that they're in that position and say, hey, I'm selling my sister's house, but I'm a dual agent. There's no way I'm going to do this. Or I'm in a multiple offer situation. Here, please take over this side of it, because I cannot knowingly walk this moral and ethical line knowing what I know on both sides.
Which some of that is license law stuff. But yeah, the NAR takes that a whole set deeper, way deeper on, what we should do. And going back to, like you say, finding an agent versus a realtor. I'm not going to name names, obviously, but situations where it's been just a licensed agent and they just seem like they don't care. Like they just want to get the deal done. They don't give two hoots about the client, or which again just goes against license law to start with. But I think it does show to the character of agent, I guess.
I'm glad you said realtor, because before I became an agent, I didn't know the difference between realtor and realtor, because I always said realtor.
Yeah, right.
And it's just realtor, like you're touring it for real. Realtor.
I guess I've never heard that.
Like
then,
I don't know, just to like remember how to say it.
They like hammered that in school.
They say
they
realtor, realtor.
I was going to save this for later. Here, but I don't know if we can hear that.
For Monday morning, the city's here with a bulldozer, and your grandson goes to a school with a metal detector.
How do you know all this? What are you, some kind of real estate agent?
Oh, he's a realtor. There is a difference somehow.
Somehow.
We don't know how, but
we don't know how.
I love that.
So they from everything I've read is they just keep drilling that yes, you can pass the the exam, you can meet the qualifications, and you can go with a brokerage, but that doesn't make you a realtor. Being a realtor is doing your due diligence and making sure that you're held to that higher ethical and moral standard and code. And I want to get on this, and I think last week when I said there was a topic that I wanted to talk about and I couldn't remember in the car, I was like, what was that topic I wanted to talk about? I think it was how ethics and moral standards tie together with fair housing, because fair housing, you're working for your client, but you also have these standards that you have to uphold. So I will get into it. I'll talk about that next week, but it'll get a little like,
a little spicy.
It'll get a little spicy because just the tip of the iceberg, how do you show a family a nice neighborhood in a school district that they want without teetering on being inappropriate
or anything like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll get into that next week. That's going to be my topic for next week, because it's so frustrating.
I guess we don't run into that too much in our little
controversial.
town, I guess, but
but they ask like, oh, how's the crime here? How's the this there? Like, well, and I think I have a good video for that too. So I'll talk about that next week.
Perfect.
Cool.
Can I write that down because I don't want to forget it again?
Yeah, that's what I usually end up doing then too. So what's the moral of the story? Should you work with a realtor, or should you just work with any licensed agent? Tom, Dick, and Harry come across?
Well, it depends what you're trying to do. If you are buying a cash house or a house for cash, sight unseen, you really don't give two squats about any part of the deal. You just want to get to the closing table. Then maybe a licensed agent in a big city buying you a dump house.
I'll just shit all over that right now. Like why though? I mean, there's no cost savings. There's no, there's no upside to like,
I'm just saying if you don't give a,
yeah.
I don't know. And maybe there is a cost saving if it's just a fly by night, somebody shows up out of nowhere and it's just selling a house and there's no strings attached. I don't know. It would get kind of gray too, because are they doing their due diligence to make sure that you're buying a property that's not?
They don't care. They just buy the
seized
house. Again, a very broad brush. Not trying to just paint every non-realtor as something bad, but I just don't know why you wouldn't, at least hold yourself to a little higher standard or do that. But
I guess I've seen both sides. I've worked with both sides, so I could see why somebody would have that mental not stigma, but anti-stigma against just going with whoever to buy a dilapidated property.
With NAR right now, there's some agents that are stepping away from that. We've had some of our agents ask, with our brokerage, do you have to be, is our brokerage stepping, not personally, but like our national brand, is that stepping away from the NAR, which they're not, just like many other brokerages are making it not a requirement. Like many brokers, like almost all of them said you had to belong to the National Association of Realtors. it just kind of handcuffed us to that. So the National Association of Realtors had an association with the state boards, the MLSs. So if you want access to the MLS, which is the golden ticket to the, to all the information, you had to be part of all that. So part of that lawsuit eliminated that. So I think almost all brokerages now have the option to not, but most are still choosing to belong yet. I mean, there's some cost involved, but it's not that big a deal.
Yeah. And Bobby asked me, he's like, do you have to be? And I was like, I feel like when we first came on, when I first got my license, that it was just a no-brainer. You just did it.
Yeah, you just did
regardless.
it. Well, and I think that's part of it too, is just like the going into the debate of the discussion on commissions with your client. I think the discussion just needs to be had. Do you have to do it? Like, it doesn't need to be just an automatic. But I think there's so many benefits, and our industry is so expensive that's like a pretty low cost compared to everything else we do.
And why wouldn't you want to work with somebody that's a part of that? Because wouldn't it be a red flag if they weren't?
Yeah, I mean,
like what are you shying away from?
Actively
choosing to shy away from that.
Right.
Like that should be a big red flag.
All right. Well, we'll keep rolling here. Sierra, let's get into these cardboard houses you want to talk about.
Okay.
Cardboard houses.
So I'm going to have a little 3-part series for the next couple weeks on this one. And this is basically going over the 3 IOI Innovators of the Year.
I don't know if you care which one I start with here. Like visionaries.
No, it's fine, either one.
Okay.
So I'm going to separate it into each person so they can have their own kind of spotlight and not breezing over anybody. But IOI is Innovation Opportunity Investment. And I'll just read a brief definition that I took from one of these websites that we've got linked. It focuses on the power of progress to empower everyone in the real estate industry to exceed goals and grow their businesses. But it's people behind these innovations and ideas who are driving technology advancements through the products and the services they deliver. So that's just kind of an overview of what exactly these people are getting awarded for. But the first person we're going to be talking about is Gene Hidleman, right there. He is the co-founder of Azure Printed Homes Incorporated. And essentially...
It's like a 3D printed house.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
So it's utilizing recycled materials and 3D printing to construct tiny homes. I feel like tiny homes is a little bit of a loose term. It depends on how far you're going with it, but the basic construction is like more of like a home pod, whether that's used as like an addition or an outside dwelling, like a guest house, something like that. They're very small. I think the other site might have a photo of one. But basically, construction of these tiny homes and home pods happens 70% faster and 30% cheaper than traditional construction methods. So yeah, there's one. They look, a lot of them look very different. There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of go about it.
Oh man, that's sweet.
Yeah,
I would totally want that in my backyard.
Right. So like I said, I think a lot of what they're starting, because I believe it was just in 2019 they started actually constructing these. So I'm sure they're definitely on more of a development with changing them and personalizing them and whatnot. But
well, it's probably just like the boxables, like that started with like a very basic house. Now they got all kind of versions of them.
So yeah, they're definitely working on developing those and whatnot. They mostly utilize plastics that were destined for landfills or incineration. Goal being to reduce waste, costliness, and time consumption in traditional home building. So like I said, I do feel like they have a lot more that they can keep building on with it, but right now I think it's a great start. I mean, it's a lot of like plastic like packaging type stuff that they use, and I was reading somewhere where it said once they come up with the model for it, they can send the blueprints to the 3D printer within like a day, and then it starts building it from there once they have the materials ready and whatnot. So back on my little hippy dippy save for the earth type of thing.
Yeah,
but
is clothing optional with this?
Yeah, build is 70% faster and 30% cheaper than traditional construction methods. Now, can I send it to my nephew with his little 3D printer and like?
I mean, maybe
it would take a while, but yeah.
Out then, yeah.
I wonder how that'll work with like once you start getting into multiple stories, because a lot of those are like single stories, like how the structurability will be.
Right. I wonder if it'll always be one thing that's like more of just like a one story, but it can just be expanded or become larger or whatever. Because I'm not sure how that would exactly work either.
Well, the boxables were doing that too. They were all the little ones, and now they've got multi-stack. They're planning on doing like apartment buildings out of those, like multi-story kind of things with that. Yeah, what do you say? Housing is more than shelter. It's dignity, stability, and opportunity. We're building the futures. How many futures are there? Plenty, I guess.
When I was a kid, I didn't understand why we couldn't make houses out of milk jugs because they, you would do
Right.
projects at
That's
school,
basically
like
what it is.
bird
They're
feeders and all that.
melting
Like, why couldn't you just
Yeah.
fill a milk jug with dirt and stack them and then put some sort of like mud? Because when you're in school and they teach you about like the Indian type houses and how
Right.
they used mud and stuff, so then your little 3rd, 4th grade brain starts churning
Gets right to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, traditional construction is time-consuming, costful, and wasteful. It simply can't scale fast enough to meet urgent housing needs, especially in communities recovering from disasters like LA. So, yeah, that would be cool. But, I mean, I love these things. I'm not trying to hate on them, but my family can't live in that.
For sure.
You know, like I know it's not for everybody. It doesn't have to, as my kids would say, I know I'm not the main character. It doesn't have to be about us or our family, but that it would be an addition to our home. But
Yeah, fairgrounds. Like I can see that being at a fairgrounds or being at a executive office in an office, where you need extra space. And a big, like Klaus Construction has a huge outbuilding, and then that would be inside of it as another office within the building to kind of soundproof and
Right.
temperature control and things like that. I can see where that would be beneficial. Or the biggest thing being, post, I hate to talk about it, but if there's like a really big flood or fires out west, things like that.
all right. Are we saving these other couple for next time then? Okay.
Those would be the next couple weeks.
So here's your little
Come back for Terrence.
Terrence
Little teaser.
Nicholson and Catherine. I don't know how to say her name. We'll find out in 2 weeks. All right, Shub, you've got what are we talking about?
Price reductions.
Price reductions, our
Yep.
favorite topic, huh?
Well, they're happening.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so again, I just kind of like what Carrie said. I think I'm personally starting to see a lot more price reductions just in our local market. I don't know about you guys. So this just goes over. This is actually for May of 25. I don't think they got the data yet for June. May of 25, price reductions are starting to come around. I think Ohio share of listings that are seeing price reductions, Ohio's at 16%.
Man, there's some of those are
Really,
almost
huh?
30%. Yeah.
I was going to say Florida 24, Arizona's 29.
29, yeah. Colorado 24, 24, yeah, that whole Midwest there is getting smoked.
So yeah, definitely starting to see a lot more price reductions. I think a lot of that is sellers are still thinking we're in the market from 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, that's been so tough.
And that's been a hard conversation to have with sellers. And again, I know, Bill, like we just talked about, you just missed out on another one that, you told them a number and they went with a higher number. And I'm sure.
Yeah, it's been several of them.
I'm sure
just
it'll sit on the market, not under contract. I mean, unfortunately, the sellers, we do this for a living. We're trying to provide you the best advice. And again, I know, like, what do we say? We're in the market to, sell homes, not, just buy listings. So
What about this? Drop your commission, not my sale price.
Right.
Gotten that one recently.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
it's tough. And well, not that we have a crystal ball. I mean, heck, we've all got listings that are just still sitting there for some reason or another. Some sell right away, but not all of them. But yeah, I've never been one to want to buy a listing, and we've lost out on, I can think of 5 or 6 in the last, just several months that they just want to hear a high number and okay.
And then sellers,
sign in
they
yard.
can put whatever they want, but buyers, I've seen this, buyers are being very apprehensive about buying. And we've had deals not come together right at the last minute. We've had buyers that are like, wow, I didn't expect that sales price. So I'm like being upfront with people right out of the gate. Like, did you talk to your lender? Do you know your house payment? If you buy this price house, do you know your house payment? And I might be killing the deal, but I'd rather kill the deal from the get-go than to get almost to the closing table and then be like, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah,
you
we
got
talked about with
big
Sean
issues.
last week. Same thing. Yeah. You
Yes.
find out what that payment's going to be. You might be comfortable with what's on the pre-approval letter, but once you actually see the
that
monthly
number.
payment, then
Yeah, so just something to, I guess, keep an eye out here. I guess kind of watch the data and see what next month is, if that continues to go up or if it, kind of stays the same or goes
because
down.
one is from May.
Yeah, this is from May. So,
Which it thinks that stuff lags so far behind then too to kind of see. I'm sure there's a way to get some more real world numbers or up to date. I would like to look into showing time to see if there's just the amount of showings on properties like across the country. It would be really neat to see the traffic of just sheer numbers, millions of showings versus the up and down with that. I'm sure that's available.
I was going to
somewhere,
say, me personally, I feel like I've been working with a lot more sellers this year than I have, I'd say, buyers as far as that
Sure.
goes, which I would say, again, it hasn't been a huge influx, but I would say we've definitely seen a lot more properties coming on the market than we have, I would say, in recent years for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that statement.
Yeah, it's tough to like have the. I mean, we don't have a crystal ball. You know, we can just look at the numbers. At the end of the day, like we've talked before, a seller, if they want some number, I guess we'll do it. You know what I mean? Well, we can do that. We want to have that conversation now that we feel you should be here at X. You want to be at Y. I understand where you're coming from, but let's go ahead and I guess try it at Y, but we may very well have to pump back to X very quickly too.
This is what the market's saying. These are what the numbers are saying. This is where you should be.
Yeah. Again, I know we've talked about this before. The one bad thing about, obviously listening at what they want and then having to work your way down, they usually don't want to do it immediately. So your house is on the market for a month or two. And then people are like, why the heck has this house been on the market for a month or two? So, or sellers get mad because immediately they don't have 10 or 20 showings like they used to. And it's just, again, we have to go back to, hey, we told you this up front that this is where we believe your home should be priced. Right. You elected to price it here. That's just the circumstances we're in now.
Nobody likes the I told you so. We don't like doing the I told you so, and the seller definitely doesn't want to hear it either, too. But it's hard to, I mean, and we still have homes. I have several of them right now. You can still justify the price. Like the numbers should make sense. And, you can say it's price per square foot, where it's at, whatever the case may be. But you still need a willing and able buyer that wants that home at that price. So it doesn't matter if the math is right. You still need the buyer willing to step up. So, and
I think buyers have certainly gotten, from my experience with working them, gotten them especially more picky
way pickier,
as of recently. So
instead of like, oh my God, a new house, a new listing, we better throw everything we have at it. It doesn't matter if we like it or not. We went to the 80-10-10 rule. They didn't care. It could be 50%. And they were still just throwing crazy math at that. So I got pulled up Housing Wire here then too, see if that pulls up. Yeah, so mortgage rates still stay flat. There you go. Price reductions up from, 40.3%. So we go down from, where'd this go? Last year? No, just from April. April's 35.5, 35.2 up to over 40% number of price reductions.
5% since April.
Yeah, days on market have gone down. Price per square foot's gone down. Median price is kind of held in there. Inventory, again, you look at these scary things, it seems way up, but it's only up 100,000 nationwide.
Which is still a shortage based on.
Yeah, it's still. Yeah, you look at the headlines. Oh my God, the what's it up? 2,000% or something like that from not that long ago, but we're still 50%, 100% under what the average is of number of houses for sale. So that's tough. But I mean, if you're a seller, you're used to your house selling in 2 seconds, and it's not happening that way. You're not getting over list price, but I don't know. I don't know what the right. I don't think any of us have the right answer for what that actually should be. Bryan, is that the end of your segment? We need the right answer.
I do not have the right answer.
We'll do what we can do. It's just like the doctors. They don't know. I mean, you go in there to go to the doctor, I'm sick. Well, it's just a process of elimination. I guess they can't just say, yeah, you've got X, Y, and Z. Here you go. So, all right. Well, I'll just roll into my, favorite punching bag. I have nothing against Compass. I like Compass. I think
sure
it's awesome.
Feels that way.
I know. I don't mean to, but it's they're, for whatever reason, making themselves the lightning rod of this private listing thing. I think there's some companies that are on their side, some that aren't. And of course, I got the exact opposite side. We talked about 100 times Zillow. They're completely on the other side of it. But like I said, I've got the receipts as best as I think I learned that from you, right? To bring in receipts. Yeah. Know what the kids say these days. Yeah, I got receipts. If I can even pull them up or if it's even going to show. But so Compass no longer adhering to the clear, going back to the NAR, you're talking earlier, Carrie, they're no longer adhering to the clear cooperation rules. So I don't know if that is across the board or what, and that could elicit a whole bunch of big fines and things like that from them. So I don't know that they'll remain in NAR or not. I have no insider information. I'm just reading all the articles that pop up here. But they're still sticking fast to this private listing, and they've done several interviews with other podcasters and things like that then too, and they were trying to make it sound like consumer choice. And then one of their director of growth came on Ricky Carruth's podcast not that long ago and kind of threw a monkey wrench into their whole argument and said that they were basically worried about their agent growth and their agent ability to capture buyer leads and things like that. So if they're doing these private listings, these private, kind of like the coming soon, we've kind of railed on that a little bit. It's a good process to expose a home to the market when it's not quite ready to go on the market. But it's still in the MLS. Everybody can see it. Everybody can advertise it. But these private ones, you can't do that. Only that brokerage can do the advertising on it. So the argument is, you Compass or you company that's trying to utilize this or trying to keep this listing private, to get these buyers, get these listing opportunities. And they were saying, no, it's for seller choice. But this guy came on and literally just said, oh, well, yeah, it gives our agents a lot more opportunity and helps us with growth. So what's that doing for you? But the NAR capitulated, they made that possible. They can do it. So, of course, Zillow comes out firing with stuff like this then too, to where they looked in the last 2 years, homes that aren't on, time to end, got to be done. Homes that aren't on the market fully, not fully on the MLS in the last 2 years, sellers have left, I think they said $1 billion. Yeah, $1 billion on the table in the past 2 years. So they looked at like millions of transactions, and it was a huge sum of money. So if it's not exposed to the MLS like we would list traditionally on Zillow, Realtor.com, everyone's websites, they're getting quite a bit less money. So overall, their studies take it outside of our self-serving, us real estate agents, us, the Zillows, things like that. There was George Mason University did a study. So it's about as impartial as you're going to get. It's not just some agent trying to sell you something. So they looked over 6 years, 2019 to 2023, looked at almost 1 million sales. So overall, if you list your home with an agent versus just going MLS or non-MLS or private or for sale by owner, whatever the case may be, you overall are leaving 17.5% on the table. So if you're not going to traditional listing, working with any of us, full MLS, full everywhere, full syndication, you are on average leaving 17.5% on the table that you're not getting. So as a seller, so $100,000 house, that's $17,500. You start talking these bigger markets, that's a huge amount of money. So back in 2019, it was 13%, and it's been going up every year. So 2 years ago, it was 18.3%. So you're looking at a 20% difference. So another one, there was the impact study. I don't remember which. It was another university, I think, did that. Looked at 50,000 sales, so much smaller. That was a 17% difference. And then Zillow had this study that went over, I think it said 10 million sales. Yeah, 10 million transactions. So you take all of those. If it was not on the MLS, the seller netted $5,000 less. So
I could use extra $5,000.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know how you sit. So a lot of numbers. Sorry, and it doesn't really show very well, and it's just me spewing a lot of numbers. But we all sit at the kitchen table. You go to a seller. You have to sit at the kitchen table, and look them in the eye, and their pitch now. And I'm just again beating up on Compass, not meaning to, but anyone using this private marketing. Okay, we have our multi-step approach to selling your home. Maybe we have a private offer from an investment thing. Maybe we'll just do the MLS. Maybe we'll do it coming soon. Or we have this private, I'm going to expose you to just our office, or our private thing. You may get 17 and 18% less on your home, if we go this route, but this is going to work out great. I don't know how that
sign me up.
I don't think they pitch it like that. I'm sure they pitch it as like, look at this new dog and pony show thing we have. And I'm sure I don't even have it, but their website probably looks amazing, over this private listing. I know it doesn't apply to our market.
Yeah, they make it sound like it's something like the rich people can,
exactly. I'm thinking like Colorado
or
like a place where you're dealing with, multi-million-dollar high rises, and they have those clients in their office waiting for that.
Yep.
In most markets,
right.
I would say more often than not, you just got a pool of buyers and you're looking for the best buyer for that particular property versus these, exclusive.
But still, why wouldn't you want to expose it to the market? Like if I'm...
Well, money grab. We talked about that before, because if they have a client and that brokerage can absorb the buyer and the seller within that brokerage, that's their money grab. That's not looking out for the best of the buyer and seller. That's looking out the best of their brokerage. Right. And look at us. Look at what we're doing with our brokerage and how awesome our agents are because we sold this.
Yeah.
On both sides.
Certain markets. Yeah, that's the dual agency. And then going back to that podcast with Ricky Caruth for the Compass growth guy, he was saying, Ricky was, and we probably should just pull it up or link to it then too. I don't want to paraphrase it. But from what I remember of it, he's like 94, 96% of our listings make it to the MLS. So basically he's saying it doesn't get sold in the private marketing, their private listing exclusive thing. So a huge majority of them make it to the MLS, but their contention now is Zillow's now banning those listings and won't put it out there. So they want their cake and want to eat it too. They want to keep that private listing. So again, I'm sitting at the seller's table and say, look, we're going to put you on this awesome website, this fancy thing. Probably not, your home's probably not going to, it's going to sell for less possibly. And we're eventually going to put it on the MLS anyways, but you're going to lose 2 or 3 or 4 weeks of marketing time then too.
Right.
I don't know.
But
how
we
this
want to
sounds
make
good.
more money, so let's see if it'll work.
Yeah, and I want to capture 15 new buyers on our portal. I don't understand how any of that is good for the
It
consumer.
just sounds like a private coming soon. Is
Yeah,
literally
well,
what it is.
that's the tools are there already. You can already do a coming soon. You can already do like an office exclusive thing, but that would just be our office then. So if we wanted to sign a listing, if a seller said, if we had some high dollar, seller and said, I don't really want my home, we kind of had this conversation. I don't really want my home exposed to the market. Do you guys have a buyer? There's the tools already in place now. You can say, I want it to be a private office listing. So we as an office, we can send it out in Slack and say, hey, 123 Main Street just hit the market. The people are very, reluctant to expose it to the market. Do you guys have a buyer? That tool's already in place.
Yeah.
Coming soon's already in place.
Right.
Every other, we can offer the 4 or 5 step approach as well, but I just don't understand how the private listing thing makes sense or how you effectively pitch that.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm going to sit there and just throw shade at it, but
Well, because it's not our market. It's really not our market.
No.
We don't have that.
But at the same time, imagine being that seller and you have people maybe coming through that are all from the same brokerage and like no one's really got the buyer for it. And then that's an extra 2 or 3 weeks or whatever that you have to have your home showing ready at all times.
Right?
For no reason. 96% of the time.
Yeah, no, it just doesn't make any sense. And I don't know how it's a net benefit to that seller or how that makes anything better then. So, so the concerns are, I guess, counter argument then. So off market might be better, SARS for hidden costs. So the solution would be delayed showings, that 17% price bump or price deficiency doesn't make any sense then either. They offered as maybe a way to sell it quicker, which again, too, with less exposure, I don't know how you sell it any quicker or better or end up getting more money for them. But I don't know. It's a whole thing. And then the data's behind it then too. I could pull up, study after study. And it's not just like, hey, there's these couple homes. It was like 1 million home sales. It was a multi-year study then too. So it was Bright MLS had one. The Northern Nevada Regional MLS had one. Zillow had their one. There was that one from whatever college that was, George Mason University, over and over and over says more exposure equals, more buyers, more dollars,
Better results.
But again, if you're that one seller that doesn't care, if money's not the thing, you don't want people in your home or don't want all that high traffic, I guess it makes sense, but I don't know. All right. So imagine you're a Compass agent. Pitch to me that you're going to.
Yeah.
Nope, not happening. So
I would hate being a Compass agent right now. And having
I've talked to some,
conversation.
they love it. A couple of them I know, they love it. Like they feel like they've just got this special thing that only they have, which is not true. It's a National Association of Realtors policy change. We could do that too. As an individual brokerage or as a whole company, we could offer that, but they're the ones that are just leading the charge on it. So
We'll see what it looks like in a couple of years.
But yeah, I just feel like I don't know. I'd be worried about getting hated on from that. I don't know. That would be tough.
Because I feel like we'd be the only one. And then where does that leave us?
Yeah.
Right.
So then it goes to, I think we talked about this before. So if we go down this road and everyone's like, okay, we're going to start to say we want to do this. And then the next office wants to do this. I think we just talked about this 2 or 3 weeks ago. It goes to Europe then, which now I've never been to Europe. All I know is, again, listen to these other talking heads. The way their system works, they don't have an MLS. Like we're spoiled here. Like we can go look on the MLS, look at all the listings. We can go on showing time and schedule them and do all that stuff. There, I think Australia, a couple other places, everyone has their own private network. Some of them are advertised, some aren't. So if your buyer wants to go look at a property, you got to go on 13, 15, 20 websites. Who's got what listed? Are you guys even willing to let us show and look at this property? Everyone just has like their own little fiefdom to where there's no cooperation. The whole clear cooperation thing. There's no cooperation at all, or very minimal. So think of that experience as a buyer. You can't just go to Zillow. You can't go to Realtor.com. You're going on the 73 websites to find.
I'm already not a fan.
No,
There's not enough time in the day to meet
Yeah.
the demand of real estate, and then to have to do that on top of it, I feel like we're going 20 years in reverse.
Yeah.
I don't think that's beneficial to anybody.
It's just a step backwards. Then is what it is. I feel like so.
Well, the only time I can see that would be lucrative or purposeful would be as if you were a major metropolitan area where I'm talking huge areas.
Right.
Santa Barbara in California, or Miami, Florida, or Orlando. We just don't have the buyers and sellers here to make that, in my opinion, to make that worthwhile.
To make it like
I
that
agree.
way. Yeah, I can't think of one instance around here where that makes sense then. So, all right. So if you want to leave $1 billion on the table, do that. If you want to sell your home for 17.5%, 18.3% less, go ahead and do that. I mean, there could be some examples why that makes sense, but I'm not seeing them. I guess put your thinking caps on. We'll leave this for next week as far as teams versus solo agents, how that affects the real estate agent. Like, I guess what's good, what's bad. So you guys can pull all the stuff you want to hate on me for then and throw that in there. If you guys got any comments, let us know then too. Have you worked with a solo agent versus a team, vice versa? How's that worked out for you? What has been your experience? We'd love to hear from you with that. But you guys got anything else? I don't have any funny videos to pull up then too. I just couldn't wait to pull that Modern Family. Gloria, I love her. So,
good.
All right. Well, that was a lot. That was a lot of numbers. Do the things, like, share. Let us know what you guys want us to talk about. I say again, teams, solo agents, what's that looking like then too, and your thoughts on the private listing. So until next time, that is episode 44. We will see you on 45.